First of all, go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because here we don't just talk about politics and economics, but about how the decisions of those in power directly affect your wallet. And today's topic will surprise you. Have you ever noticed how promises to "Make America Great Again" seem to come with a very high price tag that the whole world is paying? That's right. The so-called Trump's tariffs. These aren't just economic measures. They're pieces on a global chessboard where each move changes the price of bread, fuel, and even the cell phone you hold in your hand. The irony is that, while the rhetoric speaks of protecting the people, those who suffer the most from the consequences are precisely ordinary people. And here's the most curious point. The game of tariffs isn't about economics, it's about power. The price of a trade war can be measured in billions, but the real impact is on the shelves, on exports, and on investor confidence. The world is being redesigned before our eyes, and understanding this movement can be your greatest advantage, because those who understand the game are never caught off guard by the move. When Donald Trump brought up tariffs again, the world held its breath. He called what many see as the beginning of a new trade war, economic justice. Under the slogan "America First," he promised to protect domestic industry, steel, aluminum, semiconductors, from the abuses of foreign competitors. But, as in any political game, there are always more pieces on the board than meet the eye. The curious thing is that while promising prosperity, he rekindled tensions that had seemed under control for decades. The return of these tariffs is not just a matter of numbers. It's a declaration of power. Each tariff is a message. We decide the price of the world. And while it sounds patriotic to some, it has a cautionary tone to others. Trump acts like a CEO trying to renegotiate global contracts, pressuring suppliers, allies, and even old enemies. The problem? The economy is not a business, and the impacts of his decisions reverberate in ports, farms, and stock markets. Some say Trump merely rekindled a flame that never went out. The American fear of losing global leadership. Tariffs are the new wall, invisible but effective. They serve to contain products, but also symbolize the attempt to halt the advance of rivals. And the world watches. Europe reorganizes, Asia reacts, and even small countries calculate their moves. Because on the chessboard of the global economy, when a giant moves, nobody stands still. The domino effect of tariffs began quietly, but as fast as a rising tide without warning. Suddenly, containers were stuck in ports, contracts were suspended, and entire countries began to recalculate their budgets. The surge in import costs pushed up the prices of inputs and raw materials, generating an inflationary wave that crossed borders. In a few months, the promise to protect American jobs turned into a threat of global unemployment, disguised as economic patriotism. Multinational companies, which depend on parts from different continents, felt the impact firsthand. Car, electronics, and food manufacturers had to readjust prices or reduce production. It's a typical scenario where a decision in Washington shakes an assembly line in Germany, a soybean field in Brazil, and a technology warehouse in Taiwan. Like a geopolitical domino effect, Trump's policies showed that, in an interconnected world, isolation has a very high price. And what's most intriguing is that, amidst the chaos, some saw opportunity. Countries began negotiating new agreements, seeking to fill the gaps left by the United States. India, Vietnam, and even Mexico began to move as new players on a redesigned chessboard. But a question still lingers. Who will truly emerge stronger when the dust settles on these tariffs? And who will be left with the broken pieces of the game? China, which for years was the invisible engine of globalization, now occupies the center of the storm. Trump accuses it of manipulating currencies, stealing patents, and parasitizing the American market. Beijing, in turn, responds with strategic calm, imposing its own tariffs and seeking alliances in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. It is a silent but devastating duel. It's not just about trade, but about who dictates the rules of the future. Every ship that leaves Shanghai carries more than goods. It carries power. The curious thing is that even with all the rhetoric of confrontation, the two countries remain deeply interdependent. The iPhone, designed in California, is manufactured in Chinese factories. American corn feeds herds on the other side of the world. It's like a marriage in crisis. One tries to dominate, the other disguises its dependence, but both know they cannot completely separate. And in the midst of this tense relationship, the world observes the back and forth of sanctions, promises, and threats that seem never to end. Meanwhile, Beijing is moving with pinpoint precision, investing in innovation and gaining ground in strategic sectors such as electric cars and artificial intelligence. Paradoxically, each tariff imposed by the U.S. is an incentive for China to become even more self-sufficient. The game has changed, and the board, once dominated by Washington, is now beginning to tilt eastward. But the price of this shift is still far from being calculated. While Trump promises prosperity, the average American is beginning to feel the weight of tariffs in their grocery cart. The price of meat, milk, electronics, and even clothing has increased, silently but steadily. Middle-class families who believed they were protected by nationalist policies are now paying more for everything. It's the kind of economic irony that no one admits in public. Defending the America First banner, while their pockets are getting emptier and emptier. In smaller towns, small producers face another dilemma. Many depended on exporting soybeans, corn, and meat to China, markets now blocked by Trump's own policies. To survive, some resorted to government subsidies, others closed their doors. The promise to protect jobs ended up becoming, for many, an unintentional invitation to unemployment, and inflation, fueled by the new import costs, is beginning to erode the purchasing power of the average citizen. Even so, some believe the discourse that the sacrifice is temporary. The problem is that this temporary has been stretching on for years, while large corporations manage to circumvent the tariffs with loopholes and special agreements. The people, however, do not. They pay up front. And the price is not just financial, it's emotional, social, and political. Because when the cost of living increases and confidence decreases, revolt begins to germinate, ready to blossom in the next elections. Brazil observes this dispute like someone watching a game of giants, hoping the ball will land on their side of the field. On one side, American tariffs have opened up opportunities that favor Brazilian agribusiness. Soybeans, meat, and minerals have found space in markets previously dominated by China and the U.S. On the other, global instability has brought currency insecurity, increased costs, and a reduction in foreign investment. It's like walking on a tightrope. Every move needs to be calculated with surgical precision. Opportunities exist, but they come with disguised risks. With the trade war, Brazil becomes a strategic supplier, but also a hostage to international political and economic fluctuations. When Beijing buys more from Brazil, the dollar rises. When Trump exerts pressure, the real plummets. Domestic companies feel the impact on exports and the cost of imports, especially technology and machinery. The country wins on one side and loses on the other, trying to maintain balance on a chessboard that changes every week. For those paying close attention, this is the moment to redefine strategies. Investing in innovation, diversifying markets, and strengthening local industry can transform vulnerability into an advantage. But this requires a long-term vision, something few governments dare to have. While the world vies for power, Brazil has the chance to stop being a mere spectator and become a protagonist. The question is, will we have the courage to play big when the rules are no longer clear? Behind every tariff announced lies a carefully calculated political move. Trump doesn't speak merely as a businessman or president. He speaks as a campaign strategist. Every protectionist measure, every fiery speech about bringing jobs back, is a symbolic blow that fuels his electoral base. He knows that for many Americans the problem isn't the price of imports, but national pride. And playing on pride in times of uncertainty is more effective than any economic plan. Tariffs have become the new political platform. When Trump challenges China or the European Union, he's not just negotiating, he's creating a spectacle. The rhetoric of the external enemy has always worked to unite a nation around a leader, and he masters this art like few others. In every interview, there's an epic narrative. The American hero fighting against the global forces that stole the American dream. However, behind the scenes, the same companies that applaud his speeches continue producing abroad, seeking profit where the cost is lower. This duality is the secret to his influence, selling an idea of independence while keeping the global system running. Trump knows his strength lies in transforming crises into political identity. And curiously, the more the tariffs generate discomfort, the stronger he becomes in the eyes of those who see him as the only one capable of confronting the powerful of the world. The game is about economics, but the chessboard is electoral, and the next move could redefine not only markets, but the course of American democracy itself. In the end, the bill always comes due, and it rarely goes to the person who pressed the button. Large corporations, with their armies of lawyers and consultants, find ways to pass on the costs. Investors, with a click, move billions to more stable markets. But the worker, the small producer, and the average consumer? They have nowhere to run. They pay the price at the supermarket checkout, in the decline of purchasing power, and the reduction of opportunities. It's the old saying, revisited. When giants fight, it's the grass that suffers. The tariffs, which promised economic justice, ended up revealing a new form of global inequality. Developing countries see their economies unbalanced, their currencies devalued, and their productive sectors stifled. The effect is not only financial, it is social. With each cost increase, there is one less plate on the table, a job that disappears, a factory that closes its doors. And yet, the official discourse insists that it is all part of a larger, almost messianic plan to restoration of American power. But the question echoing behind the scenes is, power for whom? While some accumulate strategic gains from the reconfiguration of trade, others watch from a distance, trying to survive the tides. The true price of these tariff hikes is not in the statistics, but in the invisible daily lives of millions. And when the hero's narrative begins to crumble, a new question arises. What will happen when the people realize that the villain may be closer than they imagined? The future of global trade looks like a minefield, where every step could redefine decades of stability. The world is reconfiguring itself, and it's not just about tariffs and agreements, but about power and survival. Trump reignited economic nationalism, and now other nations are following suit. Europe is rethinking its partnerships, Asia is building new blocs, and even emerging countries like Brazil and India are seeking alternatives to avoid being held hostage by a single superpower. The era of unchecked globalization seems to be coming to an end. What follows is an uncertain scenario, full of temporary alliances and veiled rivalries. Companies begin to relocate their factories, governments erect new barriers, and investors seek less volatile havens. The world economy, which once functioned like a well-orchestrated symphony, now sounds like a confused rehearsal, with each nation playing its own melody. Yet, amidst the chaos, there is an opportunity to rethink the growth model, making it more sustainable and less dependent on fickle powers. But history shows that every transition is accompanied by pain. And what we are seeing may be the harbinger of a new world order, more fragmented, more competitive, and perhaps more honest in its intentions. The world is changing, and those who don't learn to read the new economic codes will be swallowed up by them. The question remains, Are we prepared for the game that comes after the tariffs, or do we still believe we can win using the old rules? Ultimately, every tariff is a symptom, not the real problem. The world is moving silently, and today's decisions are shaping the map of future conflicts. Trade tensions, embargoes, technological disputes. All of these are harbingers of something much bigger. And those who close their eyes now risk waking up too late, when the price is no longer just economic, but historic. So let me ask you a direct question. Can you identify the signs of the coming war because they are already before us? In the news, on the stock exchanges, in alliances that crumble, and those born from fear. Understanding these movements is more than curiosity. It's strategic survival in a world that is changing faster than we imagine. If you want to delve deeper into this topic and understand what's really behind the tariff hikes, the crises, and the new global alliances, I've prepared exclusive material, a book about the signs of the coming war. The link is in the description. Download it now and get ready. And of course, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and comment below what you think is coming next. Because understanding the future is the only way to avoid being swallowed by it.